You don't even realize how many people you've allowed to stay in your life simply because you're afraid to admit they never deserved you in the first place. You confuse history with loyalty, and that's why people with no respect still have front row access to your energy, your time, and your heart. And the truth is, you're not stuck. You're just scared to close the door because deep down, you don't want to face what life looks like without them. You keep responding to messages from people who ghosted you, ignored you, or disrespected you like they earn the right to reach you whenever it benefits them. You reply instantly because you want to feel wanted, even though all they're doing is reminding you they only show up when they're bored or lonely. And every time you respond, you teach them you'll always be available, even after they treated you like you were disposable. You let people walk in and out of your life like there's a revolving door, and the worst part is you call it love when it's really a lack of boundaries. You let people return just because they missed the access, not because they changed or suddenly learned how to treat you right. And every time you take them back, you're proving to them that your forgiveness is automatic and their effort will never be required. You explain yourself to people who already understood you, they just never cared, because accountability threatens the power they hold over you. You repeat yourself hoping they'll finally get it, forgetting they heard you the first time, they just never planned on respecting what you said. And the more you explain, the more you shrink, because you're trying to defend your worth to someone who benefits from pretending they don't see it. You settle for crumbs and call it effort, when deep down you know someone who actually wanted you would show up consistently. You celebrate bare minimum attention because you're starving for what you deserve, not because the effort was ever impressive. And the longer you tolerate the bare minimum, the harder it becomes to recognize real love when it finally shows up. You give second chances like they're free samples, when in reality, every new chance costs another piece of your self-respect. You tell yourself, maybe they'll be different this time, even though nothing about them or their behavior suggests change. And every time you forgive without seeing improvement, you train them to repeat the same behavior because there are zero consequences. You accept excuses instead of standards because it's easier than admitting someone you care about doesn't care about you the same way. You let people blame stress, timing, childhood, or confusion instead of holding them accountable for their disrespect and inconsistency. And every time you let an excuse replace responsibility, you let them believe their behavior is normal and acceptable. You ignore red flags because you'd rather hold on to the fantasy of who they could be instead of accepting who they already showed you they are. You rewrite their actions in your head to make them seem less hurtful because facing the truth would force you to leave. And every time you stay after being disrespected, you teach them your loyalty outweighs your self-respect. You put them first every time while they treat you like an emotional backup plan they can use when their options run dry. You sacrifice sleep, peace, and emotional stability for someone who wouldn't choose you unless it was convenient. And every time you try harder than them, you deepen a connection that's one-sided and draining. You stay because you're afraid of missing them, not realizing you've already been grieving them while they stood right in front of you. You hold on because you're scared of starting over, even though staying is breaking you more than leaving ever will. And deep down, you know the pain of letting go is temporary, but the pain of staying lasts as long as you allow it. You haven't walked away because you haven't realized your worth yet, and the moment you do, everything about this situation will change. You keep settling because part of you still believes mistreatment is the best you'll get, and that belief is the real prison. But the second you put yourself first, their access ends, the cycle breaks, and the version of you they knew disappears forever. You don't need closure, man. You need distance and discipline, because closure doesn't come from them, it comes from respecting yourself. You don't need another conversation, and you need boundaries, because you can't heal in the same place you were broken. You don't need their apology. You need to realize their behavior was the apology, because it showed you everything you needed to know. You don't need them to change. You need to change how much access you give to people who don't deserve it. You don't need one last call, you need to block the number because access to you should be earned, not handed out for free. You don't need another chance. You need to remember how many chances you already gave to someone who wasted every single one. You don't need to second guess, and you need to trust the version of you who knows something is wrong, even when your feelings try to ignore it. You don't need to fix anything, and you need to accept the truth. The right people don't break you, and the wrong people don't stop. You don't need to hold on, you need to let go, because holding on to someone who doesn't value you is just slow self-destruction. You don't need to question yourself, and you need to ask why someone who hurt you still has access to you. You don't need to check if they care, and you already know the answer based on how many times you cried while they stayed comfortable. You don't need to chase anyone. You need to become someone who never chases again, because what's meant for you will stay. You don't need to prove yourself. You need to remember the people who truly value you will never require you to beg for respect. You don't need to wait for closure, and you need to close the door yourself, because healing requires letting go. You don't need their validation, and you need to validate your worth by refusing to entertain people who treat you like an option. You don't need to look back in here. You need to understand the past will repeat itself if you allow the same access. You don't need their attention. You need to become someone who values silence more than inconsistency. You don't need to worry about losing them, and you need to ask why someone who caused you pain still feels like loss. You don't need them back, Kench, and you need to stop romanticizing someone who never showed up for you when it mattered. You don't need to stay attached to you, and you need to see that missing someone doesn't mean they deserve access to you. You don't need to be angry forever, and you need to turn that anger into boundaries that never get negotiated again. You don't need closure from them, and you need closure from the version of you that kept accepting less than you deserved. You don't need another lesson, and you already learned it, and now it's time to act like you did. You don't need another warning, you ignored the last 10, now it's time to respect yourself. And the moment you walk away from access that never valued you, you don't lose anything, and you finally gain yourself. Because when you finally stop allowing people to use you, manipulate you, and drain you, everything in your life gets quieter and clearer. And the second you choose peace over access, you become someone they can't reach, can't control, and can't ever have again.